Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us at the Women in Technology session. I'm so excited to discuss this topic. It's really important, and I'm excited to see the results of the STEM initiatives, the science, technology, engineering, and math, encouraging women to get into technology and then come into this really vibrant industry. So I look out at my colleagues here. Thank you so much for joining, and let's continue to encourage the next generation to come into this field. It's been great to me and great to these ladies, and I look forward to many new faces. Thank you.
Good morning. Oh, no, go ahead. I'm Angie Kronenberg. I'm the Chief Advocate and General Counsel at INCOMPAS. Thanks so much for coming to this session of Women in Tech. And we've been doing this for a number of years, and FirstLight has always been such a great sponsor of this event. And I'm really happy to see all the men in the room. You know, this really does take all of us to ensure that women have a pathway in our industry. And I'm really thrilled to have these great women who've been in the industry for a while to give us their knowledge. So we're first going to introduce ourselves. So I'll start with Zenita. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your role at your company.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zenita Henderson. I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Segra, wonderful fiber company located in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am very pleased to be here with you. I'm about 35 years in the technology industry. So I'm responsible for a lot of the mentorship programs and diversity and inclusion programs from the cable industry, and I'm looking forward to working in the fiber side to bring that expertise over here.
I'm Carlee Parker. I work in business development at IdeaTek in Buhler, Kansas. I'm kind of a newbie in this industry with about a year and a half experience so far, but really looking forward to growing and learning and being a part of these opportunities.
And I'm Maura Mahoney. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for FirstLight. Been with FirstLight almost 10 years and have almost 30 years in the industry.
Great. All right, we're going to jump into questions, but I would just like to note, not only do we have many years of experience here on the panel, we have great geographic diversity, too, of the company representation. And I think it'll be really interesting as we dive into these questions, like, are there any differences in your experiences the East Coast versus, the Midwest? So as you think through your responses, I'd love to kind of get your sense of that, too, and any advice you have for our audience members as we talk about mentors versus sponsors. So what is a mentor versus a sponsor? How would you define that at the very beginning?
So I would say for mentorship, obviously it's a partnership. So you have a senior leader with someone who's looking to grow and prosper in their career, who is giving you advice and giving you that daily advice on how to get through and navigate the business world. But what's more important is a sponsor. So once they have mentored you and kind of shared all of their expertise with you, what I have found and what the industry has found is that it's better to have that sponsorship, because you want to have someone that's going to champion you to get you to the next level. So if you're right now working as a marketing coordinator or a marketing manager, but you want to be a CMO, you need to be sponsored to have your name on the minds and the minds of people that are in those roles that are thinking of you for your future career. So mentorship is great, right, to get that mentorship to bring you up, but really it's the sponsorship for someone that's going to take you along that's probably more important and something that you should be striving for.
Yeah, I consider a mentor as kind of like you said, somebody that'll help build you up, guide you with your goals and your career path or personal even, and then sponsor I think of a lot more as an advocate, somebody who will think of you whether you're in the room or not, speak up for you and consider you in several opportunities.
Yeah. And I agree with what my fellow panelists said, but I also think that mentors can also be peers. So someone that can give you perspective, can give you advice that you may not have gotten if you're too close into a situation, whereas a sponsor is in a position of authority that can give you the opportunity to take on projects and showcase your capability. And in both cases, they do it selfishly. They want to see you be the best. They want to help you grow as an individual, and so they are, as a result, for me, very special people in my life that have helped me throughout my career. And I've had members of folks be mentors at one point and then be sponsors and back and forth, and maintaining that relationship and being able to tap them and know that you're going to get good counsel, good advice, really to ground you is incredibly helpful to me.
So it sounds like you really think we need both in our lives.
Absolutely.
Both mentors and sponsors.
Absolutely.
How would we go about finding those kinds of relationships? Any advice you have for the audience?
So I think when you're seeking out a mentor or a sponsor, it's someone that you respect, admire, in their day-to-day job, and just asking questions. What do you think about this situation, that situation, and then be open to their feedback. That's the key thing when I'm working with someone as their mentor is, are they receptive? Do they want to see a different point of view? If not, then they're not really coachable. So in my career, I've tried to be that, of accepting of the feedback, accepting of the perspective, and always trying to grow.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that it's important not to put too much pressure on finding these things. I think that as you grow and you ask questions and you kind of build your network and your relationships, some of these things happen naturally. And I don't know if that's the case for everybody. Maybe you have to work a little bit harder to find that, but I know that personally I have found a really, really helpful mentor just because I've been very vocal about the fact that I want to grow and I want to establish some really clear goals. But I think it's also important, like I said, not to put too much pressure on it and just ask for a coffee date. Get to know somebody, see if your values are aligned and it's somebody that can help support you and advocate for you or guide you. So I think that it's a little bit less about putting pressure on filling these roles exactly.
Yes, I believe it's definitely organic. Mine have always been an organic relationship where we've been working on a project together or, just working together, and naturally you become friends or you end up being very close to someone that's on your team. And so that person that you may look at and you spend a lot of time with, if you get that connection, then all of a sudden that turns into like an unofficial mentorship. So I'm all about the organic relationship. But when you start looking for people and making lists and pointing people out, it gets a little uncomfortable. But I do believe in the organic way of getting your mentorship across.
I think each of you referenced the relationships inside the company that, certainly allow for these kinds of relationships to happen organically, naturally, based on the projects that you're doing. Talk a little bit about, though, your experience about having these relationships outside of your company, either from prior experience or any organizations that you're involved in. What has that been like for you, and what would you recommend to audience members about seeking out other types of opportunities outside of their company organizations to get that other perspective?
I think it's, one of my mentors and sponsors said, always be networking. So looking for opportunities to meet people, certainly in different areas, different plays. So, women's groups. So I belong to the Channel Women's Group and very excited about that. And met a lot of really strong, confident women there to help me. And also, community groups in your community. You can meet people and learn something, I believe, from everyone that you encounter. So as long as you're open and receptive, you can really start networking and get some perspective. One of the best times, I was talking with one of my mentors and I was walking into a board meeting, and I remember him saying to me, he knew nothing about the situation, but he said, prepared, this dynamic is going to happen in the board meeting, and while your initial reaction may be to be negative about it, let it happen, it's important. And had I not had that perspective, I may have reacted a different way, but because I had it and I was kind of prepared for this dynamic to happen, it was a really positive experience. And again, he knew nothing about it other than his experience being in board meetings of what the dynamic may be. So I'm really grateful for that type of sharing experience, this 5-minute call before I walk into this high pressure meeting.
I met you, Carlee. What outside the company have you been able to utilize to help you?
So I think that one of the best pieces of advice that my internal mentor gave me was to once a month go to lunch with somebody, and sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's external, just somebody that is doing something that I would love to do, that I'm already doing, somebody that I could learn from. And this is male, female, this is just anybody that I could kind of get to know and learn from. And so at first I'm like, that's super uncomfortable, and I'm just gonna cold email people like, hey, can we hang out for coffee? But I think it's important to remember that everybody wants to talk about themselves. And they're generally flattered that you would reach out. So it doesn't have to be uncomfortable or awkward, whether they're internal or external. But yeah, so it's really beneficial just to kind of reach out, network, and meet new people.
I have found that the external mentor and sponsor is better than the internal. Sometimes when you're in your company, you're in the moment, right? So everyone's trying to be politically correct and trying to do all the right things, and they're teaching you the ways of what your company does. And if you want to stay within that mold and not grow and expand and be able to bring in new ideas and do something different, okay, get that internal mentor. But I have always found in my career, especially in the cable industry, your association participation is very important with women in cable and National Association of Minorities in Cable. Like I belong to like every association that's possible. But I found that belonging to those associations, I found people outside of my company. I did find my trust base, right? Your mentor doesn't necessarily have to even be someone you like. I actually had mentors I was kind of, I don't like you. I love what you do. So I'm going to like just suck this up and just take it all in, right? And so, yeah, definitely I think the external and having that trust and learning something new and being able to bring something new into your organization that your organization may not even have been thinking about has been very, very beneficial, at least for me.
I think it's, sorry, you can go ahead. I think that it's important to remember too, as you potentially, you move or you transition into another opportunity, some of these internal mentors or sponsors, your coworkers, they eventually become external. So like for instance, for me, whenever I was interviewing at IdeaTek, I represented myself as best I could in that interview room with leadership. But really what I think landed me that position was whenever leadership went and asked a coworker of mine that I worked with at my former job their opinion of me. That's a sponsor for me. They said you'd be crazy not to hire her. And I didn't realize that I'd built that advocate, but in performing well in a previous situation, that became a really strong advocate for me whenever I could only represent myself so much. So I think it's important to remember how that transitions and carries over.
And I think we'd be remiss to not talk about a session like this and a forum like the INCOMPAS Show, the ability to network with people in different roles, in different industries. Very convenient to be able to reach out and say, I'd love to network with you, learn what you're working on and your view of the world. So this is a great forum to create that opportunity.
What's so unique about INCOMPAS is that we do have a variety of different types of industry represented here. I mean, Zenita coming from cable, we have that here. And then I know we have Belinda here from T-Mobile, right? So we have wireless. I mean, there are folks from many different aspects of the big umbrella of tech and telecom. And lots of different organizations folks can get involved in based upon their own interests, but also where they're spending most of their time. So it is a wonderful way to try to find a mentor or a sponsor, both hopefully in the process. Talk a little bit about the timing for folks. Like, I know it's never too early, like you could even start in college, but for some of us, we're like long out of college. So talk a little bit about the timing of this and the sequence of events for folks as they're thinking about their next steps in their career. I mean, I think I'm like looking across the room and I think we're probably at folks that are early in their career, midway through their career, and getting towards the end of their career. Give us your perspective on that.
Well, I would say I was a late bloomer, just to let you know. I was about 25 years in the industry when I had a wonderful group of industry executives that came to me and said, Zenita, you've done so many wonderful things, and they nominated me for my Cable Pioneer Award. So I was so busy doing my job. I enjoy what I do. I am never paying attention to what's happening over my head. Even the whole reason why I have this job at Segra was because I was not paying attention to Kevin Hart paying attention to me because I was so busy having a good time doing my job. So I was a late bloomer in that regard. But they came to me and put me in for Pioneers. But after that, I saw that sponsorship for the last 6 or 7 years has just really catapulted my career because they have been watching me, right? So you're never too late, but I would say what my story has been since this all happened was that to pay attention because people really are looking at you. If you're doing a great job and enjoying what you do, people are paying attention to you. I would say look up because I did not. I was so busy having a good time doing my job. Look up and pay attention to who's looking at you, and then that's where zero in on and get that mentorship. You can start at any time in your career. But I would say I wish I could go back to when I first went into the industry back when I was about 19 years old. I wish that back then I had taken it a little bit more seriously, and the people that I got to be really good friends with that are like Uber executives in the industry now, that I had taken those relationships a lot more seriously back then. So I would say start now if you haven't started, but if you're young, get out there. If you happen to be in the space of someone that you really admire and where they are now, take that relationship and start it right now, as soon as you leave this room.
I think you nailed it. I think that it's a little bit less, I think I said it earlier, about not putting so much pressure on finding that in a certain amount of time, and like you said, making a list and, making it kind of such a black and white task. But you said it, if you're doing a good job and you're working hard, you're showing up, people are watching you. And as long as you stay aware of that and you build those connections and you ask questions a lot and don't be afraid to speak up, I think that these things happen organically. As far as mentorship, though, I think that to me, mentorship builds a lot of confidence. So if there's nothing else that you really truly gain from that as far as your career goes, the more confident you are as soon as you start, the more likely you are to speak up and ask questions and learn, and then those connections happen with sponsors and advocates as well. So never too late, but never too early either.
Yeah. I think it starts with a natural curiosity and a desire to be better. So you find folks that you admire, respect, that are doing something that, wow, I'd love to do that better. I'd love to present better. I'd love to be more analytical, and starting that conversation with them. Early in your career where you have a lot to learn and a lot of growth opportunity, it's great to start and have some people that you have confidence in that are invested in you. But I think it's something that happens organically. You can't have a list that feels awkward and forced, but definitely that lifelong quest to learn continues throughout your career, to constantly want to be better. And I think people see that. And the one thing I would say to women is you have to have that confidence to showcase your capabilities and your performance. I think sometimes we can take a step back, and we need to be able to show the contribution we're making so that others can see it, and then leverage that onto the next opportunity that's presented.
And also be willing to advocate for yourself.
Yes, yeah.
So we talked a little bit about third-party mentors and sponsors, but I actually think the best sponsor you have is yourself. And making sure that people don't just see what you're doing, but that you also affirm it by discussing what it is that you've accomplished and what you brought to the table.
Oh yeah, women have a hard time doing that. I know I do. I am not that, the gravitas and all the stuff that you hear about. Yeah, that's not me. And it never will be. I do it for my company, don't get me wrong.
And I do it for my people.
Exactly. I do it for my people. I advocate for everybody. I will advocate for all of you. I will advocate for you to have the right to do whatever you want to do. But I am just not that person. I know they talk a lot about the whole gravitas conversation. I truly believe your work will speak for itself. My career has definitely shown that your work speaks for you. But I do believe, and again, I'm going to go back, that I do wish that I had been a little bit more forward, right? With this is what I've done. I own this. I actually created this program. I was a great Robin for my Batman, or Batwoman, right? I was wonderful to do the great presentation, pat them on the butt, send them up on stage, and let them do the presentation, because I hated to present. Believe it or not, I hate to present. Even right here, I was up all night. I hate to present. So I was great with that. I'm a fabulous Robin, just to let you know that. But I did learn later in my career that you definitely need to speak up and pay attention.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we focus on the performance part of it. If you show up and you perform, you work hard, and you speak up, ask questions, people will watch, people will, like you said, you just got to advocate for yourself and put in the work.
Okay, so the next set of questions get a little more personal. Have you thought a little bit about what has made the biggest difference for you with a mentor or sponsor? What's the best advice that you were given that you could help all of us learn from your own experience?
For me personally, it's to have some perspective. So sometimes I could get really focused in on a challenge or an issue, and the best mentors and sponsors were able to look at it and give me a read that I could see a different perspective. So that's always been really helpful, is someone to be able to give me that insight, to look at it a little bit longer terms. I had this desire to always want to be perfect. So these, the mentor, the sponsor saying, nobody died. It's a program. It's all good. We're all learning, and that was really helpful to me.
I think I've been super lucky with both mentors and sponsors, advocates. I think, I mentioned earlier, my former coworker speaking on my behalf whenever I was interviewing. To me, that was huge. That could have, that kind of made or broke where I was going with things with IdeaTek. So that was huge to me as far as the advocacy. Currently, my mentor, I've learned a lot. But the biggest takeaway and thing that I remember every single day is that, he tells me, life it's busy. It's chaos. And we can set these goals. We continue to work towards them. But if you only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day to focus on this, to work towards this project or write this piece or read this book that we've discussed, that's huge. Just 5 to 10 minutes a day, if that's all you can muster. If your mental health is struggling, if your schedule's crazy, just make that just a few minutes a day. So that's huge and makes it a little bit less overwhelming whenever you remember the big picture.
Absolutely. I have to say, my biggest thing that changed my career, the mentorship that I got, was in around 2013. I was with one company for my first half of my entire career, for the first 28 years. I was with Gerald, that then was General Instrument, then went from General Instrument to the next level for snap for a second, then went back to General Instrument, then got purchased by Motorola, and then went to Motorola and went to Google for about 9 months. Thank you for the stock options. So I went through a lot of change with one company that was many names for 28 years. And I never forget, like I said, when I first started at the company, my desk was I had a desk right next to Ed Breen and John Berg and all these great, wonderful people in our industry. And then they ended up being CEOs and all kinds of stuff. And I still had my desk, but that's okay. But I never forget, 2013 happened, Google bought us, and the last 2 executives in the company that I literally grew up with, I got the email that said, they have left to pursue other opportunities. And when that email came out, just as it was coming out, one of my friends called me and said, you need to start getting outside of the company and getting involved with the associations and doing stuff. You've got to get out there and start sharing yourself outside of the walls of Motorola. And now going over, Google bought us for a little bit, then Aris purchased us, and when the Aris transaction happened, that's when I got the call. And so when they told me that I really need to start getting outside of my company and learning, and that I could learn and do all these great things with the industry associations and get my name out there beyond the walls of Motorola and Aris, that's when things changed. So that's why I say when we talked about it earlier, your association participation, don't let it overtake your jobs. You do have your day job. But those relationships that you build with outside companies, my mentor actually was with Cisco, which was our biggest competition. And she was wonderful to me and made me the marketer that I am today. But she was our competition. But getting involved and learning those different perspectives from other companies and other people outside of your company, I have to say mine has always come from outside. Because the people that are within your company, if you go to apply for a job, then they're going to take you as competition. They've raised you up, but then, okay, I've raised up my competition, right? You hear all these great stories about, you should never be scared of that. You should want to work in a room where you're not the smartest person in the room. And in a lot of instances, unfortunately, we still live through that. So I have found that the greatest advocates have been the people outside my company. Luckily, the executives at other companies, if there was a position available, they would say, well, you got Zenita sitting right there. Why are you looking outside for this person when she's sitting right there within? And your leadership listens to that, especially if they're your vendor or your company. So I've always had that advocate from that side of the house. But I will say, you're going to get that email like we all do. So-and-so is, the person you've kind of tied yourself to and hooked yourself to at the company has left to pursue other opportunities. Where does that leave you? So just think about that.
That network is going to be really important then, as you think about, do you stay or do you
Absolutely.
make a move?
Because they may go on and get a great new job and bring you with them. They might.
Yes.
That's a very, I can say that those two never came back to the industry.
Yeah.
Never came back. They called me for jobs. Never need anybody.
So now you're their mentor.
Yeah, I'm their mentor. I'm their sponsor now.
So staying with the personal, but kind of turning the tables just a little bit. Talk about your experiences. Are you a mentor or a sponsor? And how did that relationship develop? Was that organic, Carlee, or was that something someone came and asked you, I really enjoyed working with you and I want to spend more time with you?
No, I think that in my personal situation, all of those relationships are super organic. And in my role, I do a lot with our grant opportunities and our funding opportunities, which means that I have a really unique opportunity to work with several different departments, several different levels. That's kind of an all-hands-on-deck situation. And so you get to know people and their strengths a lot. And so, again, I think that organically I can be in a room, and now I've worked with somebody who's maybe never been in this meeting, in this realm, and I'm like, she nailed it during this. Let's see if we can bring her in. It's recognizing people's strengths and speaking up for them. And again, that's, male, female, I don't want to get, so hooked on just women in this situation, but that's anybody. You recognize a strength, and I think that the right thing to do for everybody is to speak up and advocate. So I still firmly believe in a super organic relationship there.
But I think it's the most gratifying part of my relationships with people is helping to bring out the best in them, and to nurture it and support them and then see them shine. I just, male or female, I've had the privilege to be able to work with folks as peers, as boss, and it really is gratifying to see them take that next step or succeed in a project, and so I really enjoy doing that.
So I would say for a work situation, I always try to be the boss that I didn't have. So I always try to, I want people to be confident. I want them to own their stuff. I tell my team that every day. Like, no, you're not going to sit behind a computer anymore. I know COVID kind of got everybody behind the computer. No, you're getting out. You're going to start going to the events, let people see you. I need you to go to meetings and show up and be present. So internally, I try to, because I was such a good Robin, I try to make all of my team all be Batman. So any team that I've had since I've been in management for the past 10 years have always been, I go in, they're kind of like a little passive, but then by the time I leave, people go, oh my God, you taught them how to speak up and now we want them to shut up. So I totally believe in being the boss that I didn't have. Number two, yes, I am in a formal program. When I got my Women in Technology Award in 2019, the cable industry had a Women in Technology Award that they have given out for the past 27 years. And every winner of those awards ends up becoming a mentor. So we have a formalized mentorship program that we all belong to. There's phenomenal women in technology that belong to this. So every month they take and they go out, they do a call to companies, and I'll send a link out so you guys can be involved as well. And they literally, all the HR managers, they contact the committee that's associated with the SCTE, the Society of Cable Telecommunications Engineers, and we got 20 people we need mentors for, so we end up having to go out and get other people that beyond our 27 or 28 women in technology people. But there is a formalized program. We get assigned to someone at a different company or someone outside of your space, that way there's not any competitive information being shared, and you go through a year-long program. We pick a book, and we meet up every month. My mentorship programs, we have never read the book. Well, I get on the call with them, and we might read 1 or 2 chapters and be like, no. I'll tell them, what are you working on? What's going on? What's holding you back? Let's work on whatever's going on right now for this month. Let's try to get you through that. And I'm very happy to say that the 3 people that I have mentored all have gotten promoted within their companies by the time they got through the mentorship program. They have all gotten great information, and now they're also mentoring other people as well. So, yes, I believe in a formalized mentorship program, but you got to dedicate that 1 hour. It's hard. It really is, between their careers and mine. But we find that time, even if it's on the weekends. I still am friends with them. I'm a godmother to one of the people, to their kids. It's great. So, yeah, the mentorship program, you've got to keep it going. It's not just for that 1 year. It's a relationship, because now I do believe in the 3 ladies I have, 2 of them I'm a sponsor of. So if there was ever a position available that somewhere else that was great, that I thought they would be good for, then out of that 3, 2 became sponsors. You're not going to want to sponsor everybody a mentor, right? But there are 2 strong ones out of my 3 that I would lay in front of a bus for, to make sure that they got their career moving in the right direction.
All right, well, I would love to make this interactive. Do we have any questions from the audience? Are y'all awake enough to ask your own questions? There we go, Ethan.
Well, I'm not a woman, but I know a few, including a 14-year-old that looks kind of like me. And she, I've been trying to get her more involved in more tech industry because there's that stigma out there, obviously. And I think that obviously, and I think the STEM programs and all that is going to be very important for them to succeed and for her to succeed. And so I guess my question is, what advice would you have for, I understand people that are already kind of establishing careers or college, what advice would you have for someone who's maybe still in middle school or something like that nature that maybe coming up can pursue sort of career in tech?
I love that
Yeah.
question.
Exposure to STEM. There are community STEM programs. There are girls' STEM days at various state colleges. Get her involved in the robotics and encourage her. If that's, her bent and her passion in life, expose her to all of it. And I think she'll find the desire and then nurture it. I mean, the fact that you're thinking about her and concerned about, getting her onto the right path is she already has a huge leg up. But definitely expose her to different things. See what really lights her up.
I think that this is it's a great start because the biggest thing is that, I know whenever I was little, you just don't talk about, that's just not really what girls do. So the fact that you're even aware of it and talking about it is huge, and it's already opening her mind to something new. And so then if that's something that she gravitates towards with some exposure, that's great. But I think that that's exactly where we all need to be with our young girls and women growing up is making them super aware that this is their field too, and they can do any of those things. So computer programming, all of it.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
I would say get her involved like Girls Inc., right? Like you said, any of the local technology. First, I love First Robotics. First Robotics is awesome. But I love First Robotics because I also preach STEAM. Because I'm in the arts, I'm marketing technology, right? So I've been in tech, right? But I'm not an engineer. But I play one on TV. But I would say expose her to first, I love First Robotics because you have people on those First Robotics teams, and young ladies or men or boys that do the marketing for the team, right? Do all of their writing and submit their papers. And so they get to do the technology and build the robot, but then they also do a lot of the marketing. And because there's a lot that goes behind being involved in a First Robotics team. There's a lot. So she could learn not just the technology side to build the robot, but also the marketing, the speaking. That program is just phenomenal. I looked them between Girls Inc. and the First Robotics program. I would say definitely expose her to it. Don't force her to do it, but maybe even if you find a local high school that's having a competition that weekend, take her to the competition because she'll see the DJs. It's an experience in itself to go to a First Robotics competition. So I think that she would see that there's also an artistic side to it because you could do computer programming, but you could also do arts to promote and market a company and let her see all of those different aspects.
And I would also say get her involved, and I'm sure she is, sports, clubs, because that gives her the opportunity to develop her leadership skills and her teamwork skills. So that combined is a really powerful, if she goes into the technology career, to have.
I have one final piece of advice for you too, and that is if there's an opportunity to bring her to work. So does the company have a bring your child to work day? And what I found with my own children is they enjoyed when they weren't spending time with my husband or me, right? They enjoyed when it was a program and they were off and seeing other people in the different jobs in a company. Oftentimes, we don't really fully appreciate all the different jobs that are available, right? It gives a little bit of exposure and opens up their eyes and their world to the possibilities. We have another question. Great.
Hello. So I had a question in regards to the mentoring and the organic piece of it. So I've been fortunate. I've had tons of great mentors, male and female, right, that have helped me along the way, right? And I go to these people for different reasons, different situations. I feel they might be more adept at it. But now I have somebody that's asked me to mentor them, and super excited about it, fired up, go, go, go. I got all these ideas, I got all these plans, but the one thing I'm struggling with is I want that person to have the same enthusiasm to track me down, to get on my schedule, to do things, because I'm busy too and I have my day job, right? So it's I want that reciprocal kind of, I believe in you, I know you can kick butt, I want to help you kick butt, let's do this, but I need you to kind of take that initiative. Any thoughts on how best to communicate that?
I mean, I would say you be very upfront with it. Listening to that, and I don't know the specifics, is I'm not sure they're really committed. So are they really committed to furthering their career and getting better, or is it just a conversation? Are they venting? So that's the big thing that you kind of have to test with mentors if you're going to mentor them is, are they listening? Do they respect what you have to say? Are they at least, considering it? Because if it's someone that you offer advice and it's like, no, that's not going to work, that won't work, they're not open and receptive to you. So sometimes you just have to say that they're not ready, they're not coachable, and you need to move on to someone that does want to learn from you and grow.
Zenita, you had suggested in one of your responses of setting time aside each week or maybe every other week, where maybe you just have it on, that's what you could suggest, you have a 30-minute time slot.
Absolutely, but if they're not chasing you, I mean, sometimes people do chase the brand. You are a brand. Obviously, that person came to you because they felt like they needed to be in front of you, so they're putting on their persona that they want to be mentored by you. But if they're not chasing you, they're not. They're doing it because they just feel like it's the thing to do. Someone who really and truly is coming after you because they admire you and want to be with you and they want to learn from you and suck your brain out. Like if I wanted to mentor with you, I'd be sitting right there with that young lady is right there. And we would have an appointment on the books every month to talk or every other week. If they're not chasing you, they're not serious.
And if he had to cancel, you would reschedule, right?
I would have it rescheduled. Yeah.
You should set it up.
Exactly.
All right. We have another question.
What do you all think is the biggest gap? Let's take young females just starting out in the industry. What do you see as their biggest either skill gap or professional gap to get from an entry-level position into management, into executive on that track? What do you think the biggest gaps are for women?
Confidence. The ability to advocate for yourself, not be afraid to put yourself out there, I think is the biggest skill gap.
Confidence is huge, and I think that there's also this pattern, and I don't want to take it a different direction, but let's say that we are in a meeting room, and it's 18 men and 2 women. Who's taking the notes in that meeting? Who's buying the lunch for that meeting? Those things just kind of naturally go that way, and so it's having the confidence as a woman and, of course, position-appropriate language to question that a little bit. I've got a lot to contribute to this meeting. It'd be great if somebody else took notes, or if we all were just accountable for our own notes. But again, that comes back to confidence. If you're willing to speak up and advocate for yourself and kind of refuse to fall into that category and role. Well,
I would say, that conversation as far as, who's taking notes, who's ordering lunch, that's probably about 10 years beyond. I mean, we kind of, and I only can speak for the cable industry. I've only been over here for the fiber team for about 5 months, but that's like a 10-year conversation. We got past that years ago. What I have found is that, yes, the young people that are coming out of college now, because of the programs that are out here, they are coming out uber confident, uber like I'm ready to take on the world. Where's my office?
So how do you manage that?
Yeah, that's what, and I would say within that last 5 years, these students are coming out. I had an intern that showed up with me my last year at Motorola, that she was intern, first year, first summer. Where's my office? I made her sit in the cubicle with me. I had a little L-shaped cubicle. I sat here, she sat there. She's now like some really big time at Def Jam right now. But she credits me for that because I made her sit in the cubicle with me because coming in the door, she asked where her office was. So no, I think that a lot of this, especially from what I've seen, they've come out uber, all these conversations we've been having the last 10 or 15 years about raising women up and coming out and going after it. They don't want to work for it. They think that as soon as they get out of college and they land into the company, they're gonna drop in and all of a sudden the parachutes are gonna go up and they're gonna be these Uber CEOs and get the C-suite. That's not gonna happen. You still have to work for it. I think we have to tell all of ourselves that yes, you're gonna get a great job. Your parents have invested all this money or you pay for yourself to get through school and you're gonna go to get a great job. But the population that you're gonna end up working for is from the old school still, right? Where you're gonna earn it and you're gonna get to the top. Yes, you're gonna get there, but it's not gonna be like you're gonna drop in and have a corner office the first week you're there. No, that's not gonna happen. You still have to work for it. And that's why I like the fact of go in loving your job because then it's not work. right? And then people will see that. And if you enjoy your job, you're going to want to do better, and you're going to want to seek out the right mentors and people who are like you and have the same passion as you and get to move you forward. But I do, I can imagine in some industries they still are the note takers and ordering lunch at meetings, but I have seen more on the cable side of the house that these young people, men and women, are coming out like, yeah, I'm having office tomorrow, and that's just not the case. And I think they're disappointed that it's not happening as fast as they think it is.
I wonder if that's a little bit of an industry difference. I was just curious because there was we have extreme, really opposite responses.
Yeah.
Well, and I wondered too, you mentioned earlier, the geographical diversity.
It could be that too, yeah.
If that plays just.
Because I was in the
part of it.
Philadelphia area, so I guess up in New York, that whole upper corridor, I just moved to Charlotte, so.
You're getting acclimated.
So I'm getting acclimated.
Great, all right. We have what?
So my question is similar to this gentleman. Getting people to ask the right questions. Maybe they don't see you as a mentor, but Jim Collins says, level 5 leadership. That includes a lot of humility. And as women, we're very caring. Oftentimes, and we love bringing people up, but we're also kind of a pain in the butt to deal with sometimes, and things that get catty, and how do you navigate that, and how do you help people on your team or otherwise to ask open-ended questions and respond when you have open-ended questions when you're really trying to help them grow and evolve?
Well, I think at the beginning, if you notice that they do something good, point that out to them. That's a good way to start the conversation of, wow, that meeting went really well, you were really prepared here, this did well. Put them first and really celebrate their success. And I think over time, that builds the two-way street of that relationship.
I think being just really direct and frank either way, both positive and with kind of redirecting. There's been things that I bring up with my mentor. I meet with him every other week. And I'm a little bit stressed about this, or I'm not sure how I should, be thinking about this. And he's very blunt about just redirecting. Maybe that's not the part we should be so worried about. Maybe this, just very direct.
And I agree. Just be real with them, right? And just tell them what's going on. I know I've just recently, 5 months into my organization, and I had a new team that was, had not seen each other in 3 years. Segra had, as every company in here, they went through a whole rebrand. They had 3 companies that came together between 2018 and 2022. They rebranded, built this beautiful facility in Charlotte, North Carolina. Everyone moved in January of 2020 and then went home in March of 2020 for 2.5 years. My team saw each other for the first time when I started on May 2nd in person. They all came together. It was like, this is the first time they'd all seen each other. I'm crying, they're crying. It's like, oh, okay, so not only are you coming in to meet me, you're also meeting each other for the first time in the 3 years that they had been away from each other. So I strongly believe, be real. I've told my team, look, we have got to step up. Marketing is a partner to our sales organization. We are important for driving revenue for our organization. And that, yes, we went to a meeting and you may have explained it this way, but, celebrate the successes, but then tell them, here's the way we really want to position ourselves as a team, right? And you as a person, when I send you to a meeting, that you're representing the marketing team, that you're not, you're representing the team properly, and that you're not just explaining it here, that you're going to aim it up a level and really do a great job. So you have to mentor them up as well, right, internally, and keep the cattiness out. Admit what you don't know, right? My team, very, very recently, there was one segment of the business that they were very familiar with and really hadn't worked with another side of the business. And when I came in the door, I was working with that side of the business, and now they're coming to us and asking us to do all these great programs. And I never forget this was literally 2 weeks ago when I told them, hey, we have a project and this is what we're going to do. I had these 8 little eyes look at me like, Zenita, we've never worked with that team before. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean you haven't worked with that team before? And I said, what is it that you don't know? Admit what you don't know. And do you know, they admitted what they didn't know. I went to the VP for that side of the business, and I said, look, my team has never worked with you. They are scared to death. I understand what we need to do, but I need the rest of the team to understand. Do you know he started coming to our meetings, and he started explaining that whole side of the business? And now we're doing marketing campaigns for them. We're being very successful. But and that's in a 2-week frame of time. They were just scared to speak up and say that they didn't know that side of the business, so they stayed away from that team. Now, we're just one big old happy family.
Just doing my best Donahue here.
Good Donahue it was. This day zero question for you. So if someone's sitting in this room and was inspired by your thoughts, which they should be, and have an epiphany and say, it is time for me to move forward, what do they do tomorrow morning? What's step zero to move forward and take advantage of what you've communicated today?
It's not tomorrow morning, it's now. Like, you should have your phones out right now, looking at LinkedIn and trying to find, like right now.
I know. I actually was thinking, like, look at all the people in the room and like how many senior level, I mean, like there's several CEOs sitting in this room right now, right? And then we've got several SVPs sitting in this room. There's a lot of opportunity right here. So immediately after this, before we go to the general session, maybe you want to pull somebody aside.
But what are you looking to do?
Yes.
So, really think about what is it that you want and where you need assistance in terms of growing your career and increasing your skill set. And I think with that, then yes, you can pivot and find folks that can help you to get there.
Yeah, I think it's not just, I need to move forward. It's what do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And then
what
how
do
do we
you bring
do
to the
it?
table? Yeah, what do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking about
Yeah, I love it. Sense of urgency.
I wasn't, but I'll tell you.
But really, get on.
But I would say, definitely think about what you want to do, but also don't inhibit yourself to just this industry and the people in this room or the people in this show or the people in this industry, right? Think about what you want to do, but then really and truly do seek out. Don't be scared. You would be very surprised, like if you went to LinkedIn and you follow all these great people out there, you would be surprised if you actually reached out to them, and if you're serious, don't reach out to them and then don't follow up. Please don't be that person. If you really are interested in getting your career forward, don't inhibit yourself to people in your company or in your industry. Look for that person, and you'd be very surprised who will reach back out to you and will mentor you. Don't be scared to reach out beyond your walls. If anything, like I said, speak up, pay attention, and reach out beyond your walls, because that's going to help you.
Chris, we had one question over here, and I think this will be the final question, so everybody gets a little break before the next session.
So last question, no pressure. Good morning. Going back to, we've been touching on confidence and the natural way meetings seem to go depending on the region you're sitting in, if it's largely comprised of men in the room, where women are just naturally compassionate, natural note takers, and all that good stuff. When you find your voice to speak up for yourself and you are met with personalities that find it abrasive or too much, what's your advice on navigating that situation?
Find another room.
Yeah.
You have to be in a situation where you can succeed. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're not being heard, then you're in the wrong room. So you deserve to be in an environment that's supportive of you. I've been in that personal situation, and it doesn't work well. It doesn't end well when you don't have that mutual respect. So it could be an individual. So try to work to, develop a common interest bond with them or an understanding. But if you find that it's, pervasive, find a better room.
And it's going to be uncomfortable, no matter what, but you're not going to get better or grow if you're not uncomfortable. I'm currently reading, I think that there's a few women in here also in this study group for the confidence code. I would really highly recommend it. I'm still working on it, but but it
we get played off,
right? But it speaks to that a lot, and the confidence in men versus women, and what women do is going to be taken as abrasive, but a man would do that exact same thing, and it looks way different. So you just be uncomfortable and make it happen.
I would say I'm all about discernment and knowing who you can have those conversations with. And, if you're in a room with someone, you get to know people. So I would probably save that conversation for someone that you know that you've established a relationship first. If you see that they're that way, get to know the person first, because then you need to, I'm still of the school of, especially as being a minority and being a woman, right? I'm checking all the boxes up there. You have to know your room, right? You have to know the people in the room. There's still a thing that, people like to talk to what they are familiar with, what they're looking at. You know who you can have those conversations with. So my thing has always been that I've always been the type, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, that the most difficult person in the room, I can just make them melt like butter. It's not a problem. Like, I always get along with people. People, oh my God, how do you get along with them? Like, because I'm real. Like, I just don't pull back. I'm not. If they come at you, I had a gentleman tell me when I was about 23 years old, I was running all the international customer service at that time, and I had a gentleman who said to me, I don't understand why you have this job. I went in for a meeting, and I had literally saved their ass. We had a $4 million head-in that went down with that Lockerbie, Scotland flight. $4 million head-in we were shipping overseas that went down. I was up 3 o'clock in the morning, ordering new equipment, getting everything ready, got to the office. Our entire senior team was in the boardroom trying to figure out what they were going to do. I got to work and was like, it's done. One of the sales engineers said, I've been up with Zenita all night. This thing is done. Z just needs so-and-so to sign off on it. Let's go. So when I got to his office after all this had happened, he was like, I don't understand why you have this job. You're your youngest one in the department. You're the most experienced one in the department. I said, because I got this done. That's why. This is why I have this job. And from that point on, he's now my godfather. We have a great relationship. I've raised 3 beautiful children. And because he came at me, and because I had, obviously in that moment I had done something miraculous, so I had his attention. But you do have to still know the room. You still have to understand who you're working for, or who you're working with, and still do that. I mean, I know that people say, oh, you should go to work and be your authentic self. And yes, you absolutely should be, but you also have to make sure that you also are aligned with the other people in the room as well. I still am a big advocate of that. I do believe in the whole go to work and be your authentic self to an extent. That you still need to be able to read the room and know who you can have those conversations. Exactly.
All right, so any final closing thoughts?
Thank you for coming this morning early. It obviously shows the interest in the subject generally for men and for women. So thank you for your attention. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Maura, and FirstLight for sponsoring.